So I'm 5 years old, and I'm sitting in an outdoor cafe in Quito, Ecuador, and I'm staring at a piece of chocolate cake and a little white pill. The little white pill was quinine, and it's an anti-malarial that you have to take if you're going to be in Quito, Ecuador. And being 5 years old, I could not swallow the pill, I had to chew it up. And quinine is the most bitter substance known to man. It's awful. And this was not my first run-in with a quinine pill, so I was aware of this at the age of 5. Hence the chocolate cake. I was sitting around the table with my mother and my father and my older brother, and they were watching me look back and forth between the white pill and the chocolate cake, and the white pill and the chocolate cake. This had been going on for some time. My brother had sat down at the table, swallowed his pill because he was older, eaten his cake, and now was bored. My mother was trying to use all of her motherly skills to convince me to take the pill and eat the cake. So she tried logic. You know, if you don't take the pill, then you could get malaria. And if you get malaria, then you'll have to go to the hospital. And if you go to the hospital, you're going to have to get a shot. And a shot is way worse than a pill. So you should take the pill so you don't have to get the shot, and then you get the cake. This was impeccable logic, but I was 5. And I was looking at the pill, which I knew to be awful. And I was looking at the cake that I knew was delicious. And I was just weighing them against each other. After about 20 minutes of this, my father, who had been silent up until now, decided that he wanted to move things along. And so quietly and unassumingly, he picked up his fork, and he reached across the table, and he carved off a bite of chocolate cake. Not any bite, by the way, but the best one. You know when you have a wedge of cake, the pointy end right where the frosting is, that was the bite that he took, which was particularly painful. And he didn't make a big deal of it. He didn't do the whole, this cake is so yummy. Oh, Jason, you don't know what you're missing. He didn't do any of that. Didn't make a fuss at all. Just reached over and gently set his fork back down. And I looked at him, and of course I objected. Hey, that's my cake. You can't eat my cake. And he just smiled and shrugged. And the family returned to watching me look back and forth between the pill and the piece of cake and my dad. And the pill, and the piece of cake, and my dad. And after a few more rounds of that, he picked up his fork, and he reached out, and he helped himself to another bite of my chocolate cake. And I said, that's not fair, that's my cake, we had a deal, I was gonna eat the pill, I was gonna eat the cake. And he looked at me, and he smiled, and he shrugged, and he went back to watching me. And after a few minutes of this, after he took another bite, and another, and another. Now, I know what you're thinking. What you're thinking is there's no way that this guy is cold and cruel enough to eat this entire piece of chocolate cake in front of his 5-year-old son. But what you don't know is my dad was a corporate attorney, and he spent his entire career negotiating against people that were far tougher adversaries than a 5-year-old boy. And he used the same type of negotiating skills against a 5-year-old as he would do against a grown adult. I remember asking him once for $10 to go to the movie theater to get a movie ticket and popcorn and a soda, and he said, well, I'll give you 5 so you can go to the movie. And I said, well, how about just, if you give me 8, then I can get the movie and the popcorn, we'll forget the soda. And he said, I'll give you 4. And I said, well, okay, so, but see, the way this works is I come down and then you come up. That's negotiating, Dad. And he said, I'll give you 3. And I said, okay, I'll take the 5. And he said, I'll give you 2. And let's just say a deal was struck. So this is negotiating against my dad. So I knew I was not going to win this. And so I ended the night by taking the horrible pill and chewing it up. It was gross. And choking it down and getting what was left of about 48% of my chocolate cake to wash it down. So I know that this seems cold and it seems cruel. But I have children now. I have 3 sons. One of them's 14. And last week, when I was trying to get him to clean his room, and he tried the traditional 14-year-old argument of, what are you going to do? How are you going to make me? What are you going to do, Dad, if I say no? Are you going to make me? I just looked at him, and I smiled, and I shrugged. And he went and cleaned his room. So, cold and heartless for the win.